a lot of cases, like it's been so difficult, to your point, right? Like people have to go and download spreadsheets, or in some cases, like it's scary, it's intimidating. You may go into an RFM tool in Shopify, which I think they just rolled out recently, but like you have to know like what you're looking at, and then the risk of like, well, do I target the wrong person? And then like, do I hurt my deliverability? So there's still a lot of expertise that's involved. So like a lot of what we're trying to do is both automate it, but also simplify it, right? So these are people that are ready to buy again right now and what they're interested in. And I would say like any brand that is not at least using some level of even image generation to drive some of the design in their emails, again, is just going to fall behind, because like the cost of creating these things is going more and more towards zero. So like whether that's an agency that's helping these different brands or whether that's brands themselves, the sooner that you can get involved and you can start to adjust your process and even some of the roles, the better. Because I mean, honestly, like 18 months from now, like, I feel like that's the equivalent of like 8 years in like normal time. It's one of those things of like, trying to enjoy it as long as I can.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. People always say that to me too. I'm always like, yeah. They always think I'm bald because I wear a hat all the time. But yeah, it's okay. I'm okay with it. It's the surprise. One day I'll wear it.
There you go.
It's a
Can make
comfortable
the
thing for
transition.
me to wear a hat. Yeah, it feels weird when I don't wear a hat. My head gets cold. All right. Chase, you ready?
Let's do it.
Nathan, you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Let's do this in 3, 2, 1.
From the open to the click, they're the masters of the flow. Just watch your list grow and your leads turn to gold. Did we retain you so far, or do we have to extend it? If you want results, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Send It, where we discuss anything and everything retention marketing, specifically in email and SMS marketing and e-commerce. My name is Jimmy Kim, and I'm here with my co-host,
Chase Diamond.
Chase. We are here, episode 30, and we're talking AI, specifically the power of AI segmentation on reducing churn and skyrocketing sales through email and SMS marketing with more AI. We've got a special guest here today. Let's start off with a little bit of that formal introduction, and then we'll get into the real introduction here shortly. But Chase, why don't we kick this off with that introduction?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, he's got quite the background, so I might mess this up, but I'm going to go for it anyways for him. So on our screen, we have Nathan Snell. Nathan, how are you?
I'm good, man. I appreciate being on the show.
Yeah, we're pumped. I know we've been working with you a lot kind of behind the scenes, so we're excited to actually get your wisdom and kind of expertise here live. But
Absolutely.
It's going to be weird I'm talking about you, but essentially for those that don't know Nathan, he is a founder and executive with over 15 years of expertise in fintech, marketing tech, workflow automation, and AI. This guy is a massive AI marketing and technology nerd, and I mean that in the best way possible. Jimmy and I are always asking him questions, and he's always over-delivering, so really good guy to learn from. And he's a serial entrepreneur, which is the type of people that we really like. And most recently, I think he had like a 6.9 billion with a B dollar IPO, which is just insane. That's incredible. So he's created products that transform markets and a ton of other things. And most recently, I guess currently, he is serving as the co-founder and CEO of Raleon. It's a platform that Jimmy and I have been using. It's a platform that we endorse and really like to use. And essentially what they are is they're really innovative AI retention team that helps D2C, e-com brands, et cetera, and agencies essentially reclaim a lot of their time, a lot of the grunt work and the work that they're doing for clients. It's being reduced by upwards of 50% while helping increase revenue and performance, which those two things don't typically go together. Anyways, Nathan, there's a ton of other stuff I could say, but welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I would love to learn from you. I kind of gave you the intro. I probably butchered a lot of it. Do you mind telling us really quickly a little bit about yourself and kind of your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for me, it's funny. It's like being kind of back in the e-commerce space. It's a little bit of like the return story for me. So when I actually like graduated college, my first job out of college was working at a startup, and we were launching an e-commerce store it was like aftermarket performance car parts, effectively. So we were launching this e-commerce store, and like, not to immediately date myself, but at the time, like Magento was like just becoming a thing. So like at that point in the world, right, it was like, well, you either like really you just built it, right? So it's like you could use some like random off the shelf things, or you built it all from the ground up, which is what we did. So you kind of fast forward from there, I mean, into my last company, Encino, which I co-founded. So that was more of the workflow automation. So I kind of went from the fun world of like, of in this case, performance cars and e-commerce and everything else into, the world of financial services and banking and so on. And yeah, so like I was there for, for more than a decade. We built world-class products used by the likes of Bank of America and things like that, all kind of geared using AI, workflow automation, that sort of stuff, which kind of then took us into Raleon in a way. So we sort of saw what was going on in the direct-to-consumer space, and reminded me a lot, honestly, of what we'd kind of done on the Encino side. Really with like segmentation being a huge pain, being very imprecise compared to like, what somebody is actually like, compared to like what we know with Meta, for example, today. And then even just like the whole process around how you plan emails and retention overall, come up with campaigns, generate it, and everything else. It was just very reminiscent. And given, I enjoy sort of transforming industries and bringing workflow into that sort of mix, it seemed like a very natural fit, which is what kind of brought us to here.
Nathan, what car is the company still exist? The aftermarket company?
It did not in the same way. So it does. National Speed was, you can't go on there and buy stuff now, but they have like a physical retail location. I don't know if they've started franchising now, but they kind of shifted gears, along the way at different points. But yeah, it was awesome. We actually had a few viral video hits, which like at the time when you had 1 million views, that was like a huge thing. And we had like a couple of videos that hit like 1 million views in a day or two, which was awesome and built some notoriety and that sort of stuff. So it was fun. But.
Oh, interesting. Are they now like a media company? Is that what it sounds like?
No, so they're still they do some media, but they're still very much focused on really souping up cars. So like they've got a built-in dyno and stuff. At the time they had their own custom fab parts and stuff that we'd also sell through the e-commerce store and that sort of thing. So, but it was yeah,
very cool.
It was hard to not have, I don't have a sports car anymore. It was hard to not have a sports car at the time because you'd literally you'd walk through the shop and like I can still remember like the big Viper V12, big block, it was just awesome. Terrible for the pocketbook, but great for, I don't know, everything else.
Yeah. As someone, I'm personally into cars, and cars are like the worst hobby you can have because it's like literally the money pocket drainer, but there's no return in it. And the only cool ROI you get is some random dude tells you nice car or something in a parking lot. That's your ROI, and everything you do with it is either braking or burning gas the whole time.
Yep.
So
yep.
I don't know why I have an obsession over it either, but it is a hobby of mine too.
It's awesome.
Anyways, Nathan, well, welcome to the show. Very excited here as kind of Chase kind of outlined and so forth. Not only is Nathan someone we work with, but he's also the sponsor of this pod too. So big shout out to you, Nathan, for sponsoring the pod and making sure that people can enjoy this show.
Absolutely.
I want to jump into kind of the meat and potatoes of this episode because we kind of went together and said, what do people want to know about when it comes to AI and segmentation? And I want to kind of start off with a simple question, like in a simple sentence or so or two. What's the biggest problem you think AI solves for e-commerce marketers who are still doing essentially basic list-wide blasts today? And that includes like 90-day segments and really basic things that people are doing, which as much as I do and as much as Chase does, is pretty standard still in this community, unfortunately, and something that we're out there trying to change.
Yeah, I mean, to me, from a segmentation specific standpoint, I think the biggest shift that we're going to continue to see over the next few years is really moving us from like these old school static rules to being able to target actual behaviors, right? So like what we kind of call signals or intent. And it's and I think everybody would agree where it's like precision marketing works better, but yet we still do these big blasts. And it's sort of like advertising to people on Meta by geography only, while like ignoring the ability to use interests and things like that. So I think like that's sort of the idea, at least on the segmentation side in our mind, of what we're doing is it's really trying to move us from these static rules, 90 days and 30 days into like using the actual behavioral data to do better targeting.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And then with that, like, can you walk us through like how Raleon's AI like actually builds a segment? Because it's great to kind of like hear about in theory, right? But can you like walk us through like the actual practicality? I was really impressed and surprised when Jimmy was showing me kind of how it works. So like what raw data does it ingest? What kind of math or algo happens underneath the hood? And essentially, what are we seeing on the front? Because to me, it looked like magic, and I don't know what happened on the back end.
Yeah, so that's the. So we've had to like scale back the magic a little bit and like remove some of the blackness from the black box. But like the way that we approach it is pretty different than others. So kind of what I was alluding to before, we start really not with the segment, but with the behavioral signal. So these signals are actually what make up a segment overall. So in an example of a signal, for instance, is like somebody who's ready to rebuy the same product. So the way that our AI then builds these signals is it all starts with, with data, kind of what you were getting at, Chase. So we pull data from Shopify, from Klaviyo, from your website. We enrich it with our own AI insights from Raleon, and we do it all automatically on a per brand basis. So it's as specific and kind of pre-tuned, if you will, as possible. And the result that you get as a result then is like these very specific behavioral signals that can then be mixed and matched in more of these new unique ways that we're not necessarily as used to into a segment. So for example, you can take these signals and instead of just saying, okay, well, has somebody bought in the last 30 days or did somebody buy 30 days ago? They did, send them something. You can instead say, okay, well, let's use our ready to replenish signal and a signal that predicts the likelihood that somebody needs a promotion to buy and mash those two together. And now we have the ability to target people that are getting ready to likely buy, that are going to be most motivated by a promotion. And that's kind of the mixing and matching that you start to get by using this data and kind of this signal behavioral approach.
Hey, it's Jimmy, and I know you're enjoying this pod, but if I can just have 30 seconds of your time, I'd love to invite you to our thriving, growing community for retention marketing. Chase and I recently realized that there's no centralized community for retention marketers, specifically focused on email and SMS. And oftentimes, most communities are just for founders or for executives only. That's why we're proud to share on this pod that we have over 350 marketers in a closed community via Slack, where we talk about everything email and SMS. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're invited to come join us. It's just $1 to get started for a trial, and you'll get 1, access to the Slack community, 2, weekly private newsletters on actionable things that you can do in your email marketing. 3, we have special meetups and webinars that are retention focused. 4, you'll have direct access to myself and Chase. And 5, we have special discounts and other cool perks that we have. This is where we hang out, and if you want to hang out with us, this is where you should come join us. It's called Ecom Email Certified Community, and you can learn more at ecomemailcertified.com or check the show notes for direct links. Hope to see you there, and we'll send you back to the pod now. That's interesting. I think that is something new for a lot of people, because most people, and as you know, marketers, when they think behavior, they think about the simple like open or click behavior, but you're actually taking on-site behavior, purchase behavior, and all these other places, data points on users, right?
That's exactly right. Yep. Yeah. And I think
it's so interesting.
So, I mean, to your point too, like we see, even as we talk with folks and as we have customers that use the product, like one of our signals is on-site engagement. And like, even within that, we've had to do education around it where they're like, oh, well, that's like Klaviyo, right? Where like somebody just came to my site and you know about it. And we're like, no. Again, think of these as like behavioral signals. So it's more of a, like, yeah, you could just say, did somebody come visit my site? But if we use that meta sort of intent example again, what we do instead is we apply that learning across it. So we can say, well, like, are they actually coming to high intention pages? Because somebody can come to your homepage and that doesn't mean that they're engaged and it doesn't mean they're likely to buy. But if they come to your homepage and then they land on a certain PDP and they're doing other actions, we track all that. So instead we can say, hey, look, these are on-site engaged customers that are actually have a high propensity to buy. And as a result, you should target them in a very intentional way, send them intentional messaging. And again, that's kind of that idea behind, what you were saying, Jimmy, of like, it's not just here's a rule, but like, here's all these other factors that can actually, play a role in this that we have the data for. We're just not really using well or haven't.
Yeah. And it sounds like things get more advanced. And, one of the things, right? So we were at a conference recently, or where was it? I can't remember where I was. I was at a conference recently. I was speaking somewhere. I think it was a Utah event that I was at. And I was talking in there to talk about email and SMS and like train people and teach them about what's going on. And I actually went around the room and it was about, let's say like 100 people in that room. And I said, how many of you guys know what RFM is, for example, right? And like 4 people raised their hand. And it's the same thing we did. We did it last year on a conference. I did the same thing and nobody knows what it is. And you know what I find interesting is that's the principles that I learned a lot about. And we talk a lot about it in this, on this pod, because I think that it's something that people should start really learning. And what I think is really cool about what you guys are doing is essentially with all that data you're doing, you're eliminating the human effects of RFM. In fact, I think you guys consider your model like RFM 2.0. That's like, recency, frequency, monetary, these are scores and predictions and stuff like that. And the old days, I look back, 2008, 2009, I used to literally download all that data from my, my ESP and my store, and I would chop it up and build all these spreadsheets and all these little Excels and then upload all these segments each and every way. Yep. When you think about what you guys are doing, obviously, you guys are obviously predicting more, doing things using Shopify Analytics and your ESP data, man. Like, How have you guys started thinking about this? Because there is a little bit of re-education that needs to happen. That's the magic. What's funny is the magic isn't the magic. It's really just doing old principles and automating them ultimately, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a combination. I mean, there's a lot. There are aspects for sure of like let's take these old principles because like they do actually work, and it's a matter of like in a lot of cases, like it's been so difficult to your point, right? Like people have to go and download spreadsheets, or in some cases, like it's scary, it's intimidating. You may go
Yeah.
into an RFM tool in Shopify, which I think they just rolled out recently, but like you have to know like what you're looking at, and then the risk of like, well, do I target the wrong person? And then like, do I hurt my deliverability? So there's still a lot of expertise that's involved. So like a lot of what we're trying to do is both automate it, but also simplify it, right? So like we're not just saying, oh, well, like here's the next time that a person might order, do something about it. And you're like, well, like, I don't know what I should do with this date. And like, what does this really mean? We want to simplify that down into like, hey, look, these are people that are ready to buy again right now and what they're interested in. Now you can actually do something about it. And like, we're trying to, the kind of magic that Chase referred to, the way that we think about it is how do we sort of remove all the technical stuff away from it? And, instead just apply simpler language like a behavioral signal and say, look, like, here's your simple signal or here's your simple segment. Go start sending things to people versus like, what you described, Jimmy, which honestly, a lot of people still do today is, okay, let me download all the stuff. Let me do this manual analysis. Like that takes a lot of time and effort and expertise that like a lot of brands, especially in this economy and everything else, don't necessarily have a whole lot of time for. Like they just want to send the emails and get the results and tell their brand story well. And that's kind of what we focus on.
I like this. Okay, let's keep going with it. I think this is eye-opening for a lot of people. So I want to give you an example. Right, VIP segment. I think a lot of people like this segment, and if they don't like it, they really should because it's one in which delivers a lot of engagement and therefore obviously revenue.
Mhm.
So can you walk me through like how does AI identify a high-value customer who's about to lapse, right?
Mhm.
So someone's a VIP, but they're maybe about to fall out, right?
Mhm.
What kind of message does it recommend? Like, can you walk us through that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even, that's a great example, Chase. And I would even like take it a step back of, when most people think about VIP, they go, oh, well, like this customer has bought in the last 90 days and they spent more than a certain amount of money, or they purchased more than a certain amount of times, right? That's kind of like the RFM stuff that Jimmy was talking about. Because where a lot of folks start is, as opposed to doing the analysis, they try to like build it in sort of a rough way into the segment rule itself, which like has a level of effectiveness, but you're missing out on a lot. So for us, like the first thing that we do is really, again, we think about it kind of first principles as like, what are the signals that we're really looking for? What are the indications that we're looking for? So we actually start when you talk about something like a VIP customer that might be at risk of churning. We kind of break that into two different signals. So we say first, like, how do we identify what a VIP or very loyal customer looks like? Because it's not actually, if you think about even RFM and that simple principle, it's not actually like, have they spent a certain amount of money only? And it's not just have they made a number of purchases only. So we use AI to actually analyze the entirety of a customer base and say, okay, if we take some of these principles, some of these other insights and stuff that we have within Raleon, and we actually model it out, as opposed to just saying, like, hey, this customer has bought 4 times, therefore they're loyal, we can instead go, well, that customer might actually not be loyal compared to what your loyal customers actually look like, right? So you might say,
Sure.
oh, well, it's $200, but actually $500 is what your loyal customer base looks like. So we start there. And then we have other factors that we then use to sort of attribute an at-risk nature to it. And for example, like going through and doing and taking that kind of approach and breaking it down in a predictive way, like we've seen customers see like a 14% lift, pretty quickly in recovering these sort of at-risk customers that were kind of tapering off, that were still valuable, and so on. So does that answer that to your kind of question?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, I want to flip this because I love a good VIP segment, but when you talk to brands and they're always talking to them, the biggest thing I always see is this. I'm always like, well, how big's your list? And they'll be like, well, it's 150 grand or whatever, and you're like, okay, cool, and then you start kind of double tapping into it.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out they've got a list of 2,500, 30,000 purchasers, and most of the other people are non-purchasers, prospects that have opted in. And I think that people waste so much time and energy, unfortunately, in this market, spending time promoting to the prospects when we all know that 80% of your dollars comes from your customer base. However, there's value in that prospect itself, right? And so the question I have, as you kind of talked about the VIP, because I'm curious, is like, what about the other side, the non-prospect? What signals tell you the engine that someone's hot or a time waster, and how you should treat them differently? Because I think that is something you guys are really nailing down too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So signal wise, it really depends. But you're right. I mean, that's definitely an area that I think gets overlooked in a lot of cases. I mean, I was just on a call earlier today with a fairly large brand, and they were talking about exactly that, where they're like, "Well, how do we convert like more of these prospects?" And then everybody goes into like, "Well, your welcome flow, can you?" And it's like, "Oh, hold on. Like, let's take a step back. Like, let's think about what the actual list looks like." To exactly your point.
Yeah.
So what we look at, in some of it, it's segmentation, right? So it's like, it depends on what kind of audience you're actually wanting to target here. So there's things like on-site engagement, like I mentioned before. So I think one of the things that's often overlooked is people go, to what you said earlier, Jimmy. Oh, well, like, did they open the email? And like, well, they opened the email, so therefore, like, they're interested, and we should try to sell them something. Or they go, oh, well, they came to the website, and it's like, okay, these are good indications, but it's not necessarily like a strong signal that like a true purchase might happen. And this is really where, like, we look at the entire customer base and we use some machine learning and things like that to actually do true modeling, because we can go and say, okay, well, usually, when you have a customer like this, it's maybe on their first or second or third purchase, we can better predict the likelihood that they're going to become a hot customer, or like we call them an upsell opportunity, right? Where there's actually future LTV potential. So we'll use modeling to basically say, hey, look, they're performing the same behaviors that prior customers that were earlier on in their journey also exhibited. Right. And this is where it's like, you can't do that with rules. And that's kind of why I say, even to sort of the first question, like AI segmentation starts to take us from this realm of like RFM rules, not, have they made 3 purchases, to, hey, look, like, what have our other customers that are similar done? And is this customer showing similar behavior? And as a result, like, let's do something about it. But like before, it's been really hard to do it, which makes sense, why folks tend to be more focused on, okay, well, let me just convert this prospect and that sort of thing.
Hey, okay, I'm disrupting the pod for just a quick 60-second break and a quick little shout out to our title sponsors of the podcast, OmniSend. Okay, for those that don't know, OmniSend is an all-in-one email and SMS marketing automation platform specifically designed for e-commerce brands. They make it super easy to engage with customers, drive repeat sales, and create those seamless personal experiences we're always talking about. Here's 3 things I love about OmniSend. First and foremost, they're trusted by over 125,000 e-commerce merchants worldwide that absolutely love them. With a 4.8 rating star with over 6,000 reviews on the Shopify App Store, it's an obvious choice for your email, SMS, and push needs. Secondly, I love great customer support. And OmniSend, they're absolutely nailing it. They're responsive, their help docs are great, and their team is absolutely fantastic. And third, they have great features and better pricing. Pricing matters just as much as features, and OmniSend, you're going to get both of those. And they have all the features you need for your store, and their pricing is absolutely fantastic. In fact, recently I just heard a story about 2 community members that made the switch. One reduced his price from $8,500 to $3,500, which is huge, but even bigger, that $3,500 included SMS, which is absolutely wild. Then another agency I just recently talked to, they just switched their entire client base over, and he's been saving his clients anywhere from 30 to 60% off their bill, which is allowing them to take that money and reinvest it on the top of the funnel so they can make more ads and make more money. OmniSend nails these 3 things that I care most about: great support, great features, and fair pricing. Plus, I just helped Chase make the move to OmniSend with his own personal email list, and their migration was super easy. They even have a team to help you support you, and they have a great automated tool to bring your contacts right over. So if you're looking to take your email marketing to the next level, I highly recommend checking out OmniSend. They got the tools, the automation, the expertise to help your brands grow and thrive. Head over to omnisend.com/send it to learn more and start scaling your customer engagement today. Now let them know Chase and Jimmy sent you. Now let's get back to the pod. Very cool.
Nice. I like that. Okay, so let's talk about discounting, right? So discount addiction is a really big thing, right? How how does the model essentially think about like kind of this price sensitivity and really decides like who is maybe worthy or who should receive the discount versus who shouldn't? Like how do you guys essentially identify like who to send a discount to and who you think will convert without a discount? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so discounts are a tricky thing, right? Because when it comes to a discount, we always like to start with a question of like, what are you optimizing towards? Because if you're a brand and say you're still trying to grow really significantly, you might be optimizing less towards margin. In which case, there becomes a factor where it's like you can kind of I don't know how much discount segmentation is worth it, because really like you can give everybody a discount, and the likelihood that they're going to purchase is just going to go up. But if you're trying to not train your customers to always expect a discount, where you're trying to preserve margin in an environment where you're getting riddled by tariffs or things like that, suddenly like that becomes a lot more important. And the way that we do that is, I'd say there's a variety of signals and factors that go into it. But everything that we kind of do across that, again, comes down to those signals. So we have a signal, for instance, that's called promotion, like basically like promotion responsive. So you're likely to respond to a promotion overall. And we have some others that are geared towards like a discount seeker. In other words, this person is only going to buy if you give them a discount. And again, we kind of look at the customer base as a whole. And some of the strongest indications, of that end up being like timing from when they came to the site to when they made a purchase and whether that purchase included a discount or not. And you can even model things, right? Where it's like, okay, if they came in and they looked at your stuff and they entered into your welcome flow and they hit their abandoned cart, right? And then the abandoned cart flow kicks off. And now, 48 hours in or 3 days in, depending on how aggressive you're being, that discount hits and now they buy, right? There's a lot of factors like that get overlooked to say, okay, like this person was clearly motivated to make this purchase because like price came in as a factor, versus like I came to the site, I didn't even sign up for your welcome flow, I made a purchase, no discounts at all. Like that person's a lot less price sensitive overall, or likely to be. And then you continue to observe those behaviors over time. So
makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually, when you think about it. And yeah, discounts are something that I think we're both like, like it's not the right thing always to think about, but it's just, unfortunately, you're never going to get a brand to get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to go into something fun here because, a couple weeks ago, you came to us and you told us about this whole new feature of vibe marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's been on the internet knows that vibe marketing, vibe coding, I'm a vibe coder, I've found out, because I just sit there with Replit and I'll just kind of tell it to do stuff.
That's awesome.
Eventually it spits something out and it's freaking cool sometimes. And I've got some things that I've shared with the community that I've built that I just give out because I don't know what to do with it outside of just building it. And I have no idea if it'll scale or anything else, but you guys have vibe marketing, which I thought was really fun. And I know you guys just came out with it on V1 here, but dude, tell us about it, man. How does AI learn how to vibe and how does it really work? Tell me how people use it.
Yeah. I mean, so for us, vibe marketing for us is really in the context of like creating emails and all the stuff we've been talking about. So there's a segmentation aspect of it, as you might suspect. And then it's also on campaign planning, on really like coming up with the layout of the emails overall, with the copy that goes into it, and then even generating the email itself. And the way that we think about, the vibe marketing piece, and even why we rolled it out, was actually like our customers were asking for it. So what we found, without getting sort of too philosophical, if you will, is like we had a great user experience and everything. We've actually seen our adoption like double or triple now, just because like the interfaces literally just talk to it. And I think because of ChatGPT and other stuff, you're getting into this feeling of vibe where it's like, oh, well, like as opposed to making me like fight with Klaviyo to figure out like where I go to pick the right profile, the right segment, or the thing, like the property on the thing and everything else, you can instead just say, hey, like I want to send an email. Who do you think I should target? Right. And literally you just type that in and it goes, oh, well, based on this campaign performance and these other details and so on, here's probably 3 segments that you could send this kind of email to. And by the way, like, do you want some content around it? Right. And I think the vibe aspect becomes like, if you think about how we think as people, at least to me, I'm curious what you guys think. It's like, it's a lot more of like keeping you in context, keeping you sort of in that vibe, that mode of like, okay, like this is what I wanted to do. Let me like ideate and sort of iterate and riff on it back and forth. And that's a lot of what we embedded into the product, but like automated throughout as a result. So you can get to like, you can like one-click launch, I think is what you called it at one point, Jimmy, which is great. Of like, you can literally like one-click launch like 8 different emails out the door if if you approve them. But yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you guys, like when you think about the vibe side, like how do you guys sort of riff with that and how do you think about it?
I mean, for me, when I think about it, it's just, I feel like it's like a conversation with a person or a marketer. And the way I think about it often is I'm the guy sitting on top and I'm talking to like an IC and I'm like, hey, go do this. I don't like that much. Can you flip this around? But usually that's a longer conversation over a couple conversations. But what I find really fun when you're working on like a Replit or something and you're working through AI is that you literally real time give you that action and then it feeds you back. And then sometimes you're like, that's not good. Revert, right? So, I feel like that's kind of where you think about why it's vibe, because it's like you're just kind of going with your gut. You're very non-traditional product. In a typical product, you've already designed it, you've already curated it, you've made the maps of it, versus where this is almost like on the fly based around a gut feeling. And that's probably why people call it a vibe marketing or vibe coding for so.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's funny. That's actually, we see that same behavior play out like, within our system now. is like people will go through and they'll be vibing with the plan, and it's like the plan spits out something at the start, and they'll go, no, like that feels like a lot of promotions. Let's do less promotions. And like you said that, that education had a 60% engagement, like this same time last year. Let's do a little bit more education, and it's like very vibe oriented. And then I do think the magic then is like that, like sort of agent side, the taking action side, right? So we incorporated that to where you can then say, hey, cool, go and generate an email and come up with 5 subject lines and pick your favorite one, and then use our common hero image and go, right? And it just does all the things off of one stick, one thing. And at the end, you're looking at an email.
Yeah,
makes sense.
For sure. No, I agree with both of you. So I'm not going to add anything new there, but taking this in another direction, right? We've talked a lot about the pros of AI and all the things it can do, and obviously, right, there's way more pros than cons. But what I want to talk about real quickly is about mistakes. So, in your opinion, like which of the kind of the classic segmentation sins, so over segmenting, letting lists go stale, etc., would you say that AI does not automatically fix? And this, therefore, is the need for the kind of marketer and human to still kind of step in and override or kind of execute themselves. Hey, it's Chase, taking just 30 seconds of your time because I found something game-changing for e-commerce marketers and agencies. If you happen to be drowning in retention marketing tasks, we have a solution for you. It's AI. There's an AI strategist, AI segmentation, AI email builder. It's called Raleon, and this is the platform that helps marketers like myself and yourself create everything from emails to custom segmentation based on your data and your email marketing strategy. I mean, imagine getting everything from an audit to campaign planning in just a handful of clicks and in under 5 minutes. Their AI handles everything from segmentation to strategy and creating on-brand copy that actually converts. Brands using Raleon save about 50% of their retention marketing time and see an average of 3x ROI. Yes, you're going to save time and make more money. Talk about a no-brainer. And this is really why brands like Coast, Ginger Milk, and Life Pro trust them and really utilize them and start recommending them to everyone. So head to Raleon.io, that's Raleon.io, for a 3-month email AI segmentation playbook in just 60 seconds. Yes, it's 100% free to try, and this will be the best 5 minutes you spend today, I promise. Raleon.io, let them know that myself and Jimmy sent you, and we're now back to the pod.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to some of the things that AI is not sort of as great with today, I'd say like stale lists currently is some of it. I think over time that'll help more because really anything that's like very data oriented, AI does a pretty good job of. I mean, I think some of the places where we see it falling over a little bit is, it's just like that intuition. Like there's a level, like we were talking vibe, right? There's a level of like brand intuition that like a CMO, or whoever, head of marketing or founder has about their brand, where they're going, especially like cross-sell wise, or like what kinds of customers that are similar sort of problem profiles or personas might have kind of overlapping interest. So we've seen that a few times where we've gotten some really great gems out of our system for that. But then there's also been instances where like, where a brand has said, hey, look, like, we've got, certain fit styles, of our apparel. And like, and when you fall into a fit category, like you just care about those things in that category. And AI is not going to be as good at sort of identifying that and saying like, hey, you should create a bunch of segments around this specifically. And by the way, here's overlap between, say, these two kinds of sports that you might not necessarily think about. So I'd say like the segmentation in terms of like the kinds of recommendations that are less obvious, it doesn't do quite as well at. I think too, like there's an aspect of like, if you're running 90-day engaged, then like cleaning that list and like what to do about it, like AI is it's not necessarily as good at that. It might say, hey, here's some people that you could put in that list that you might not should put in that list. But I do think there becomes limitations there where it's like, there is a point where you have to apply some of your own mental thinking and strategy and that sort of stuff to it.
Yeah, and that's the right way of thinking about it, right? Like it's not like this is ever going to do it all for you, but it's going to at least 10 extra output, give you ideas, and even if it can give you a little inkling or indication. I mean, look, if you know how much a consultant costs, like someone like Chase or I to come in, we know how much we cost and versus what your software costs, and honestly, it's way cheaper to go deal with your software than it is to deal with us. And people still pay us and we understand it, but we're just humans and we just use our intuition often and our experience to kind of make those decisions. If you can talk to something and do that, it can do that. In fact, this kind of leads me to the next question because, with AI, what's really interesting is this, another conference, I'm going to say, I go to a lot of conferences, but we talk about adoption with AI and like how people are using it. And here's a typical layout, right? 5-person marketing Shopify team. They're in there. They have zero data science. They have no development understanding of anything. What is the realistic turnaround when you think about it? Like when you bring a team in, and they could be an agency or a brand or whatever, what does day 1 look like and day 30 look like when it comes to like adopting AI, segmentation, vibe marketing? Like, how are you seeing users kind of learn the new age and new skill that's occurring in this market right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, it really depends on the team and sort of how comfortable they are with like with the tooling already. So, if they've been using ChatGPT or Claude or something even a little bit, then like there's a little, like, I'd say there's a bit more of a sense of like of how to interact with it. I'd say on the vibe marketing side, honestly, there's just something magical about it. Like, it's so easy to use that whether you're like super technically advanced and you use ChatGPT every day, or whether you heard about it but it scares you, like both folks literally jump in, and on day 1 they start using it. In fact, I mean, it's one of those things of like where we do like really sort of handheld onboarding because we like providing an awesome customer experience, and we've started every onboarding with that, where they literally just kick it off themselves because it's just so natural. So I think like you can be that 5-person team, have no data science resources, and just kind of jump into the sort of vibe marketing side literally on day 1 and get value immediately. And like part of it's because we designed the product that way, but it's also because like it's such a natural form of interacting. I think the segmentation side becomes a lot harder because really, to like what Chase was asking about before, the AI can guide you some, but like this, I think what you described, earlier on, Jimmy, of like there's still this idea of like there's still a manager, like there's still that strategist that needs to sit above and think about what's going on and sort of interpret what the AI is saying and going like, is this right for our brand? So I'd say AI segmentation, while you can roll it out quickly, tends to be sort of a longer process because like you're going to want to do smaller tests. You don't want to blow up your entire segmentation strategy on day 1. So we even tend to recommend it as like hey, cool, like pick a campaign in a segment and run some tests, or pick a flow and do some A/B tests on it, and sort of walk through it in that way and begin to test more and more and use like be a human. Like AI isn't, it can feel magical, but like it shouldn't be left alone to run on its own at this point.
No, for sure. Given that you're obviously so close to this, right? Like day in and day out, night in, night weekends, whatever you want to call it, you're like obsessing over this, right? You're building it. You've got kind of the inside scoop and inside look. If I had to ask, so fast forward kind of a year and a half, maybe 18 months down the road, what in your mind is going to feel kind of old school about segmentation and potentially even retention as a whole, if AI adoption continues at this pace? And like the pace is just like kind of freaky. Like it's insane how good it's getting, how fast it's getting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is freaky. I would even say as an encouragement to anybody listening, like, Chase, to your point, like I live in this all day, every day. We keep track of like everything, and it's overwhelming to us at times where I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? There's a new model that just came out. And then it's like, and then we have to spend time because we're trying to figure out like, okay, like how do we explain this to people so they even know, like, should they think about it and so on. So like, it is overwhelming. I think from like a fast forward standpoint, and actually I would even love your guys' take on this. I'd say my hot take on it would be, I think if any team, agency or brand, if any team, 18 months from now is manually doing any aspect of this process, they're going to fall behind. Like full stop, they're going to fall behind. And I would even say like just using ChatGPT to do parts of it will not be sufficient. Because like there's so much that's coming out. They're like, I think even those brands that are really resistant that we talk to at times, because again, like we generate emails, we have image generation as part of that. And a lot of brands are like, oh, we're never going to do that. And it's like, man, like 18 months from now, I would be shocked. Again, I would say like any brand that is not at least using some level of even image generation to drive some of the design in their emails, again, is just going to fall behind because like the cost of creating these things is going more and more towards zero. So like whether that's an agency that's helping these different brands or whether that's brands themselves, I think like the sooner that you can get involved, then you can start to adjust your process and even some of the roles in terms of how they work with this process, the better. Because honestly, like 18 months from now, like, I feel like that's the equivalent of like 8 years in like normal time. 18 months of AI time is like it's like dog years, right? I feel like I'm like a dog just playing in this AI race at this point.
Well, man, I've seen, I'm definitely been around the block for a while and the internet thing and seen a lot of things happen. And a lot of this reminds me of all the way back when HTML came out and how people's argued that this was not going to replace the standard Java language, that they were, or
Mhm.
the C plus language, or even when not Figma, Photoshop came out. I remember that conversation. All the designers were on a hoopla, like, there's no way digital art's going to do this and blah, 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 and that. And obviously over time it's happened. And, human evolution is support like that, right? You get 20% of people are going to adopt like crazy. They're going to move fast. And then you got 20% who will never adopt and they'll stay in their old ways and they'll still run their store that old fashioned way. And then you got those middle ones that just need time. They just need to keep hearing it over and over again and to kind of jump into it. And it's kind of the same thing with AI. When I first heard about AI, I definitely had my things, but I'm an early adopter kind of guy. So I'm going to dive in and just learn and go figure it out. But, slowly the pragmatics are showing up and then there'll be the laggards that come in. I mean, one of my favorite books is Crossing the Chasm. I'm
Mhm.
sure you've heard that book
Yep, it's
before.
a
And
great book.
they do such a great job kind of breaking down the steps of humans and
Mhm.
that like steps of humans for a startup that applies for like everything in life, no matter what it is. And it's the
Mhm.
same thing I'm seeing with AI, and they'll all come along eventually, start realizing it. And I think when the real world applications start to continue to hit, when you're calling phone support and they're using AI modeling to be able to respond, and it's actually good. It's not like the old chatbots. I feel like we have a lot of fatigue from that chatbot world when chatbots were terrible,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
And so I think that people are going to slowly adopt it. It's just going to be forced adoption. Tools, platform tools, even, if you look at a Shopify store, especially the amount of tools that people are using today on a Shopify platform or a Shopify store are absolutely incredible. And I
That's
look
right.
back at 2015 when I was on Shopify and we had like 10, 15 tools and we were overwhelmed. I can't imagine what it feels like to run 30, 40 tools these days. So, I think it's just time. I hope that, I think it's doing the greater good. I do think there's a bubble that we have to go through some type of bubble cycle. That's normal too. That's all part of good technology in life. We've got to go through and implode on it a little bit. And
Mhm.
I don't think the implosion will be that big because this time I feel like we're more sophisticated around this stuff. And honestly, data and AI aren't new, as you know, Nathan.
Mhm.
Like AI, new mainstream terminology, but AI also has been
Been
around
a
for
while.
decades,
Mhm.
right? It's just getting better and faster processing. It's really hardware that's empowering this more than it is software. It's basically hardware is allowing this stuff to move faster and quicker and so forth. The bigger data repositories. I mean, I was laughing like you can get this little 5 terabyte hard drive now for $100 online, and God. We were talking about this at the conference. So like, remember when you got a 100 megabyte drive from a zip drive back in the day, and it used to cost $500, and now
Yep.
for $100 you can get 5 terabytes. It's we're moments away from being able to get 100 terabytes of data for $100 soon. So
Mhm.
like this stuff has all gotten cheaper and the hardware supporting has gotten cheaper. So I think it's just a matter of time with adoption at the end of the day. And again, I always tell people AI is not new. It's been around forever. It's just something that is now new in an interface that humans and people, not like you, Nathan, but people who are like average Joes, to be able to get on and involved into AI. So that's kind of my take around it. I think that it's just part of life, and you're always going to have people who don't like it. If everyone liked it, we'd have a problem anyways, in my opinion. It's
Totally true.
true.
That's probably, yeah, it's
Cool.
very true.
Well, Nathan, dude, this has been awesome, man. Like getting to know you a little bit more, getting to know what you're working on, getting to know your thoughts around this stuff. I mean, I think if you're listening to this pod, and I'm sure Chase would agree, like you got to go look into AI and you got to go tap into different things. And Chase and I've been around the block a lot, and we've learned so much around all these different tools. And I'm not going to sit here and name all these tools that we've tried, but most of them, I'm sure Chase, you agree, are kind of disappointing, right? And if you're try using the free thing on ChatGPT and getting frustrated because it can't even spell your name right on the image or write something correctly because it doesn't truly understand, or you don't have the time to go become this prompt engineer that everyone keeps telling you to be. You got to look at great tools. And why we're really excited about being supported and supporting Raleon is that they're doing something different in this market. They're actually making something that works, and we're hearing successes not only from obviously Nathan tells us, but also we hear from the friends that are using Raleon now and continue to explore it, and agencies that are excited about it and worried too. And and Chase, you run an agency, and you're in part of it, but this is the type of stuff that comes and changes what an agency model is. Maybe in the next year or two, you can have half the team members, and I'm not trying to put scare into your agency, but like there might be at half the team members because something like Raleon comes and alleviates a lot of the needs, and you just have strategists and the people who are just AI specialists. You may not need designers and this and that anymore because this part is taking care of it. So any thoughts there, Chase, as I'm kind of closing this thing up?
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is a slight pivot of what you said. So maybe you don't have half the team, but maybe you have 2 or 4x number of clients. So maybe your existing team, right, allows you to go be way more efficient and take on more clients. So we're not telling you to go fire people. We're telling you to go add clients efficiently using a tool like Raleon that allows your existing team to not be at bandwidth and really allow them to do more with less.
I like that. The positive take there.
It's funny. There's an agency that we work with, and when we first sort of started off with them and we walked them through everything, initially they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to kill my agency." And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "No. Like let's sort of walk through this." And then by the end of it, he was like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, he's like, by using Raleon for the efficiency that you give me, he's like, I can go and I can bring on 5 to 10 more clients without having to hire an additional person. He's like, something like I can grow even more. And then so the rate at which I have to hire people to scale is now different. So like the whole equation and operating model changes. And I think that's the case for agency and for brands.
Yeah. And in a world where they're always worried about how technology is going to kill them, I mean, I think that's where they can embrace him, and they can be, there should be agencies that are standing up and being proud that they're using AI to be able to empower their agencies. They should be proud that they can go off and take more clients because of that, because their time is so much more useful than having someone sit there and write like every pixel of an image, to design every pixel of an image or write every line of copy, right? You can skip it to the 80%, the 90% that something like Raleon spits out, and then you simply finish it off. And that's where the human element will always come into place.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap for this show, episode 30, the power of AI segmentation, reducing churn and skyrocketing sales with email and SMS. Listen, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, follow, subscribe, leave us a rating on your favorite podcast listening platform. All right, let's start off with the first thing. Nathan, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on X. I don't know, I hate calling it X. On Twitter, you can just look me up, /Nathan Snell. Very simple. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. I do a lot on there.
Is that true? Okay, cool. And Chase, where do we find you?
Most platforms, Chase, no A in Diamond.
Got it. And you can find me mostly on LinkedIn and X today. And as I kind of tell everybody, if you like what we talk about, you enjoy our retention, we have a daily newsletter now that talks about email and SMS. It's at ecomemailmarketer.com. We have a community. We have a certification program. We have a lot of different things. We're going to throw them in the show notes so you can go check those out and so forth. With that, next week, we're coming back with more data. So next week is episode 31, and Chase and I, along with Redis of OmniSend, we were on stage at this place called Commerce Roundtable Miami. For those that know, shameless plug, I own Commerce Roundtable. Chase is also a partner in that. But we have an event, and there's a live event with hundreds of people, and we literally had Redis go pull all the data of everything that happened in 2025 thus far with email and SMS and push notifications. And we are sharing that data, comparing it year over year, and sharing our insights. So we're going to play a replay of that because I think it's super valuable. And there was like 2-3 things that people will pick up from that and realize, oh my God, I'm leaving money on the table. A lot of this stuff will kind of also echo a lot of the stuff we have, but with data form. So it's not just Chase and I blabbing about stuff, but it's actually real data that supports the things that we've been saying over the last whatever, and it's cool to see it on the data side. So we're jumping back with that. We'll see you next episode, episode 31. Nathan, thank you for being on this pod. Chase, good to see you as always. Just saw you all week, so good seeing you for another week. But thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
From the open to the click, they're the masters of the flow. Just watch your list grow and your leads turn to gold. Did we retain you so far, or do we have to extend it? If you want results, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it.